the comic that started it all for Marvel? It's very difficult to say exactly because everyone will have different definitions of the start of something. It's like the start of the Silver Age, the start of the Bronze Age. You could do whole loads of videos about that, and perhaps will. But I think personally, it's going to be something like Patsy Walker. I'm going to put it down. Patsy Walker. I love Patsy Walker. So Patsy Walker, these ones are just great. You pick them up reasonably cheap. Issue 96. And the reason for the first issue, I think it's because of that. But it's number 95 actually had the first MC, along with Journey into Mystery, I think was also around that time as well. So you've got that. So this one, about 4 months before Fantastic Four number 1. And you got there, obviously 10 cents, but the MC is probably the thing. After Patsy Walker, of course, went on to become the amazing Hellcat. Love those stories. And there's Buzz Baxter, who turned out to be a pretty horrible guy, battled the Avengers and probably else, loads of other people as well. But these are great stories, normally just one pages, but sometimes a 4-page or 5-page one. Patsy Walker, I think, is probably up there as one of the early Marvels. Now, it's obviously not a superhero comic at that point. It's just one of the humour stories. They had loads of them, Million Model, etc. But also there is another one that probably could claim that throne of the earliest Marvel. And the reason for that is this, which is a brilliant book, Marvel Firsts. So Marvel First includes includes a lot. Probably 80%. I think there's a few stories they could have done. If they ever do a Marvel First series extended edition, I think they should include things like Linda Carter and things. There's a few. Why did they miss those out? Still, I suppose they had to keep it a reasonable size. But let's go to the next thing you got here. Rawhide Kid, and you can see another one, Amazing Adventures. That's another one that could claim to be up there in the obviously Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Inker, Steve Ditko. You can definitely see the Ditko inking. But they obviously got all these other stories. Now, they're not going to be ever the first Marvels. Now, you can see just before Marvel came into existence. I mean, obviously, Marvel's been around since 1939, that period. I mean, it was before that even, because you've got the pulps. There was loads of Marvel this, Marvel that. And also, of course, you had Marvel Comics and then Marvel Mystery Comics, which I always thought of as Marvel Comics, because quite often when they advertised it, they often just called it Marvel Comics. I could never understand why maybe they just forgot that mystery was there, because they kept on always referring to it as Marvel Comics. Very little, few times I see Marvel Mystery Comics in the advertising. But still, these are great stories. But we've got Rawhide Kid. That is the one that they put as the first. Now, obviously, this probably wasn't intended to be the order they would. So, maybe that was the reason why they chose that one. Number 17. This was August. So you got August just a little bit before, though apparently it came out March. Seems to be when you look at the dates and things. So always with these things, beware the Rawhide Kid. Yes, definitely. Brilliant. Brilliant. They're all great stories. Loads of great artwork. And there were other characters as well. Gun in hand there as well. Another story there. And then you've got another one there. The Outlaw. The kid, Rawhide Kid, turns outlaw. Wasn't Outlaw Kid. I think that story came along. But we have got Amazing Adventures. And that probably could sit up there as the earliest Marvel superhero comic. Perhaps. That one, just as superb. And I've got the book. I will show a few more books showing things. But Dr. Droom. Dr. Droom, there is obviously an early sort of Doctor Strange. Now he did turn out to be, I think, Dr. Druid later on. But you got here, obviously, the change now. Dark and mystical. I guess he didn't want to be confused with Dr. Doom more than anything. Everyone would say, Dr. Doom, no, not Dr. Droom, Dr. whatever. But it's still a great bit of artwork, and I always love this. Of course, it definitely is. Obviously, it's Kirby, Ditko as well, so great comment. And like the Ancient One, so got a similar sort of thing. The llama, sick llama at that point, they said. However, my favourite, Linda Carter's Student Nurse. Got one of those. Brilliant. Love those stories. There should be a collection of those. Not going to happen. But if Marvel followed the epic approach, the DC finest approach, they could produce some of these ones where some of these odd, quirkier series or maybe the Lost Marvels. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Lost Marvels. They put the Linda Carter ones. They haven't been reprinted ever. You got their Fantastic Four issue 1. And of course, that is probably many people put as the first Marvel comic. That, and again, you can see it's got the MC there. It's got MC. And also, it's got Ind as well. They were not really sure what they were going to call. But still, great story. It's a bit basic, the artwork at times, but I still enjoy it. So obviously the Mole Man, it's always weird the way they did the chapters and things. They had to sort of split the story. It's always very odd. But that one's great as well. Really love it. But for me, the first probably proper superhero, perhaps, because I don't really classify the Hulk, because the Hulk was more a monster book, could have easily been a monster book as much as anything else. Tales to Astonish, of course, with Ant-Man, that definitely was still at that point, wasn't really going to be a superhero. Who knows? Man in the Beehive, those sort of ones, Man in the Anthill. But probably issue 3, because then you got Baxter Building, all those sorts of things, all the Baxter Building, the uniform, costumes, everything, as the Fantastic Car. They've got that as well. So then maybe that is probably the first proper superhero Marvel comic. But also, let's just go through the various other things here that I've got. So this one, Rawhide Kid, this is a brilliant one. This should definitely be an epic series. Not certain why they haven't released an epic series of these ones. Be brilliant. They are Marvel Masterworks, of course. I always forget Marvel Masterworks. But this is a great one, of course. Brilliant. But for some weird reason, when I flicked through this earlier, I suddenly was going to say, oh, what was the date for that? I haven't got dates. I hadn't noticed that before. But this one, Rawhide Kid 17's got Stanley, obviously, Jack Kirby, Don Heck, Dick Ayers, and Don Heck. And there it is in black and white. Beware the Rawhide Kid. So that, again, probably definitely one of the early Marvels. But this one, of course, at this point, there's number 18. That doesn't have the MC in it at that point. Let's just quickly flick through. And you got number 19. That still hasn't got MC on it. Now, sometimes with these things, I always love the job codes, but actually, a lot of these are Rawhide. I'm just flicking through very quickly. They haven't got MC. Eventually, we get MC. The origin, you got MC there. Number 23, maybe it was on 22. But you got Rawhide Kid. Great little book. So that's very early Marvel as well. So with that, I've got this, of course, the origins of Marvel Comics. Well, it's not really. There's a couple of the secret origins of Marvel, which is probably a much better one because it's got the pulp history, it's got all the background, the early days of Marvel. Obviously, Martin Goodman. So you've got those, which this really... Now, of course, for everyone, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, I think personally both up there in the origins of Marvel. Stanley, of course. I know that's controversial, lots of people, but without those three, it would have been different. But without Martin Goodman, it would have been totally different. If he hadn't been publishing those books, we wouldn't be having this talk. It'd be something else. It'd be another comic book company, DC. DC would have been probably supreme. But here's the Fantastic Four, obviously put. Now, in this case, obviously Stanley, obviously done this, he didn't put the Rawhide Kid. Perhaps it was obviously going to be more a superhero one. The origin history of his most famous creations. I guess maybe that's why that was that. Though, who did Rawhide Kid, I wonder? This book's a fascinating one. If you want slightly before, sort of before the Big Bang, this one is Tales of the Implosion. You've got that. Apparently, I was reading somewhere, one of these books, Stanley wanted this back. So we wouldn't have had the MC. Of course, eventually we had those lovely, I love that. It was always great. But this one, Tales of the Implosion, definitely worth checking out. Thomas G. Lammers, and it's just full of tons of information about the Atlas period and obviously what happened with things. You can see there's Marvel Comics, of course, the first one. And you got Daring Mystery Comics, Red Raven, Mystic Comics, and they were those sort of things. And you got all there. They could have gone for that, couldn't they? Could have gone back, calling themselves Timely. I guess there was no desire for that. But you got all the way talking about what happened, the various listings of all the comics at that time. And after that, then it was Monster Comics and so on. So you eventually got Marvel again in the way that we know it. This is a brilliant book. I love this one. There is an extended version of this. I ordered that, and unfortunately there was problems with the order. I never got it, and I haven't bought it since. I suspect it might be out of print. I don't know by now. Tomorrow's always good. Of course, the great thing about Tomorrow's, won their Alter Ego magazine. If you want to find early history about Marvel, probably Alter Ego, and not so much probably Back Issue, but they're always good as well. But the Alter Egos, there's probably a load of Alter Egos, really, the early period of Marvel Comics. And this book is superb. You probably can get it also. The great thing about them is digital. They do digital ones. I love their digital PDFs. Because they're not always easily you can't pick them up so easily in the UK. Sometimes they turn up in the shops, like Gosh or whatever. Dark They Were, Forbidden Planet. I've been doing something about Dark They Were. Sign. We got those ones. Great, all the way through. Gives a listing as it goes through, but it doesn't really go about to the early formative years. Doesn't really talk about much about Rawhide or Linda Carter or Patsy Walker particularly. Oh, you do get that though. Beware the Rawhide Kid. And it's got here. So it does sort of feature in here as well. Obviously, Jack Kirby, the brilliant work he was doing as well. And this one, lots of behind the scenes, backwards and forwards, all the various comments that were made. And I just love this one. Again, tomorrow's. You got the Hulk there, the very, very early days, all the various inked pages there. But it does give a bit of detail about all the various secrets behind the comics, obviously there. And there is, of course, Martin Goodman there. Obviously Stanley as well. Really worth picking up this one if you can get a copy of that. Again, I don't know if it's still in print or not. Finally, this one, Amazing Fantasy, adult fantasy. That's why I think that went out. It's weird actually they've included that in that cover for this one. But I guess you've got to choose Amazing Adult, because before there were Amazing Adventures. Maybe they didn't want to confuse it with Amazing Adventures, obviously, that came later. But you got there, but they dropped it. Eventually, of course, it became Amazing Fantasy. Number 15, the one that everyone knows. And the great thing about this one is it includes all the stories. All the stories are included here. And I love that for this. Now, many of these, of course, you can find in the Suspense series because there's a lot of Ditko. So there's going to be a bit of overlap. But this one is just brilliant because it does include these really, really early stories. And I love these early stories because often when you look at them, you often see the same sort of things. Oh, that building, whatever, or those people there, they end up looking like some of the, obviously, the early characters. The resemblance is very strong, I think. And of course, you've got the Dr. Droom story there, which is great. And also some other Dr. Droom stories as well. Lots of where he zapped people like with hypnosis from the amazing cases of Dr. Droom, The World Below. I love that. Just great. And some more stories here. But of course, the classic one eventually, all the way through, I love that brilliant bit of Ditko there. Love this book. Really good. And then we get, of course, Spider-Man. Well, everyone knows that one. Everyone's seen that one. However, your first Marvel comic, the one that you think is the first. Fantastic Four number 1, Fantastic Four number 3, as I mean, maybe Fantastic Four 4, where obviously Submariner comes back after obviously a slight period. Though of course he was in the 50s briefly, but you got that first appearance of Submariner or the Rawhide, or maybe Spider-Man in Amazing Fantasy. Is that, I think, superhero, we probably could say Fantastic Four number 1. But again, there's always possible other arguments for or against that. So yours, please put in the comments below. Always great to know. Have you got any other ones, other suspects that you think, you know what, everyone's forgotten about this comic or whatever? There's always one. It's quite often when I do things, I think, why doesn't no one ever, you see various comments and you've got a long list of things. And you think, why doesn't anyone mention my obvious one? So please put it in the comments. It would be great to know what you think as the first Marvel comic. And of course, some, a little bit of a reason why you think that it is the first one. A like or dislike, always appreciated. Also, please subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. And have a nice day and bye.